What time is it, somebody? You ready? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for being here. We're getting ready to call this special call meeting to order, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the extended waste hauler agreements for 90 days, to extend the waste hauler agreements for 90 days.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Administrator, Director Malik, do we need to have you guys come up, just give us, I guess, a brief overview of the
Mr.
90
Mayor,
days?
members of the governing body, yes, I would ask that Dr. Malik come up and give some highlights on why we're proceeding in this manner.
All right, Dr. Malik.
Good afternoon. So this is the effort by the staff to continue the services beyond December 31st, 2025. It's a 90 days gap measure arrangement with them because of the aging equipment and everything else. So they both holler us for the increase in the damage waiver, which this body already has approval for one when they did the transition. So we're bringing back to this body on, that proposal for action.
Thank you, Dr. Malik. Chair recognizes Commissioner Bobby Williamson V.
Yes. Why are we trying to extend this, Dr. Malik? Why are we trying to extend this instead of just voting on the hauler?
So the question is, what we extended?
No, my question is, can we just vote on a hauler for the contract? Why are we just trying to extend this for 90 days?
So we're not voting on the hauler, we're just voting on the extension and the rate adjustment. The reason we're doing it because at the last meeting, this body was not able to make a decision on the recommendation the department presented to award that RFP, and that would have enabled us to continue the services under the new contract effective January 1st, 2025. So this measure is providing a gap measures for this body to come back and have further discussion on the recommendation department provided.
You know, people asked a question last time, look at one hauler or what have you. If we had to today, who came out? Who was the best hauler with the best price, with the best services, with the what have you? Who would be our number one?
So it's part of, yes, sir. So it's part of that agenda item, that was submitted back on number 14, and it was on the committee on the 12th, and then move on, and finally on December 3rd, commission. So under the analysis part, the RFP process, the way it works is that there are several factors goes into the consideration to rate this firm. So that process is similar process we just did for the long-term recovery RFP for Check. So by that process, their ability to provide the service, their submittal, their resources, the fee, all of that goes into facts. So here's the summary of that. There were 4 submittals, and I will go in top to bottom order. So Georgia Waste System was the top rated. They scored 468.3 out of 500. Then the Coastal Waste and Recycling was the second, and they scored 409.3 out of 500. Then the third was the Capital Waste Services. They scored 351.7 out of 500, and the fourth were Ryland Environmental, 321.8, 500. So that is, public, that's in part of the analysis that I submitted to this body.
Gotcha. So my question today is, you have people who are crying about pushing towards one particular company or whatever. You saying Georgia Waste Services scored the best?
Yes, sir. They rated the top as part of the procurement process that were utilized for this RFP 25,900. Yes, sir.
Do you think that one particular company could handle all of Augusta?
So the department recommendations will stay the same, and in our assessment, it needs city needs 2 haulers to serve based on the information we have, given the area 300 square miles plus area 78,000 accounts, all of the things
Okay.
the information submitted.
Okay, so you would stay with 2, and I think Commissioner Johnson, he recommended, I forgot, was it C with, what was recommended?
So there's 2 parts to this. One is adjusting the residential pickup fee, which city charges the residents. That's a separate. If commission wanted to have more time, that can be delayed, and because that will not go on the tax bill for several months from now. The other is to getting a new contract in place, and that's what is more critical, and that's what this gap measure 90 days is doing. That 90 day is not doing anything with the residential rate.
I got you. Yeah. I see we have other people who are in the, whatever you call it, waiting to be speak. I'll just wait. I do have a motion, but I'll wait for them to get finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner from the 5th. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 9th, Commissioner Francine Scott.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Dr. Malik, Administrator Allen, what is the cost of this today? How much is this going to cost? 30 days, 90 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. The total of this, how much is it going to cost?
So the ask increase is so So if we take that, just the increase, that comes around 243,000 a month. But please understand there are other element of costs, because right now the city purchases the cars, city repair the cars. So we extended, the city has to continue those services. So there will be add-on costs to that. So 60 days is going to be double, but 90 days is around 730. But then the new cars which are aging is somewhere at 200 to 250 to cover the 3-month period, and the repair maybe other 40, 50,000. So roughly, just rough number, you can say it's maybe a little less $1 million for 3 months.
I may have some more question. And where would this $1 million come from, Administrator App?
Would you have it, Dr. Malik?
So, I mean, it has to come from, because it's enterprise fund, so it has to come from the operational budget, or we have to look if there is some reserve. I mean, yeah, reserve fund is this enterprise fund or not? I really have not looked into that, or somehow one way or other we have to find funds in the solid waste operation.
Ms. Allen, you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I mean, if we don't do something today, unfortunately, we will stop the services because we will not have an agreement with either of the respective haulers. So, I mean, we're at a point now that either if we don't, we may have to unfortunately do some emergency tactic to have something so we won't stop having the actual service, a break in the respective services until we can get a final contract.
Okay, all right. Chair recognizes Commissioner Jordan Johnson from the first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Malik, I heard you mention 2 funding sources. So is it safe to say that we have not identified a sole funding source at this moment?
Yes, sir. I mean, we have now looked at the funding. I mean, the funding source has to be from the waste, collection. I have not looked at that, but is there any leftover fund or reserve fund,
So we're not really sure which funding source is going to fund an extension for 90 days on our waste collection contract, a waste collection agreement. We're here today to vote on an extension, but we don't know where the funds are going to come from. So we're being asked to vote on something and don't know how we're going to fund it. I'm gonna come back to that. You said that it's going to be about $730,000. Is that what you mentioned?
just
Somewhere around $1 million when you add in additional cost?
Yes, sir. And let me kind of go back to that. So there are funds in 2025 budget to pay for the waste collection. It may not be sufficient to carry for 12 months. So the budget does have funds allocated to continue the services, and then
How does this allocation, this $1 million allocation, how would this impact what we already were planning to do for 2025? How does this impact the 2025 budget?
so it will impact. First thing it will impact. We have to look at the auxiliary services on that. Because this is a primary function of this operation. So we have to look into that. The previous proposal, the recommendation department has, based on that RFP 25-900, there was sufficient funds or collection to carry on the services as recommended, and then other services at the low service, less level of service.
Okay, and my last question for now would be, how does this financially compare to the RFP 25-900? How much does that RFP come out to be? How much does that contract come out to be in total compared to what this 90-day extension is going to
So
be?
I have not run those numbers. Really, I've been in the field all day. But it's, so the recommendation department made for the new contract was 2414. That includes the cost of the wheel cars and some other costs. So this one, we're gonna come to around 2186, but then you add the other costs like $1.40 for the cord and all other things. So it's around $4, somewhere $4 to $15 more than the recommendation department made previously, 2414.
You say that's how much more?
$4 to $5 per, per account.
$4 to
If we add-
$5 per account.
Yes,
and
sir,
that's
if we
for the
add
citizens.
everything, if we look apple to apple to compare what we're doing now and what we're gonna do.
And we're going to absorb that cost, or the citizens are going to absorb that cost? The $4, $5 increase you just mentioned?
So the operation has to absorb the cost, and then we got to figure out, how to carry the services for the next 12 months.
And this still doesn't include recycling?
So, yes, sir. Short answer is yes.
Okay, all right. Sounds like there's a lot of figuring out to do. And I know that's not on you, that's not your fault, right? It's a lot of figuring out to do. I think the wise thing of this body would be to go with the RFP that the department recommended, with the option that that I tried to propose, the lowest number to the citizens. I mean, here we are coming down to the wire, trying to, create another quick fix for a long-term issue that we could have had addressed 2 weeks ago. But I'm preaching to the choir. We all know that. Thank you, Dr. Malik.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Madam Administrator, you need to chime in?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, there are funds in our waste collection fund account, but we will not know how this will affect our overall 2025 budget until a decision is made as it relates to the respective rates for our waste collection. So it's hard for Dr. Malik or anyone else to actually say how it's going to affect 2025 until we actually figure out what our respective rates are going to be and if we're going to reduce the amount of ancillary cost that was included in it as well.
Thank you.
I clarify my question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so I think my question mostly was with the $1 million coming from the fund that Dr. Malik mentioned, how would that impact that current fund? So we're going to take $1 million from one place for this. Would that cause any substantial, I guess, shortfall, or would that put us behind in any way in whatever fund we pull that $1 million from?
I wouldn't say it would put us behind, Commissioner Johnson, but I will agree that it will have some effect on whatever service we decide that we were going to utilize for those funds as it relates to the ancillary costs that we have been budgeting into the project.
And last question, I promise, last question. Do you foresee that leading us to any reductions in services?
I can't say it, I don't want to sit here and say it will lead us into any reduction in services because a decision is going to have to be made as it relates to how we proceed with those respective services or costs. The ancillary costs, and I know I keep harping on it, but the ancillary costs are built into this actual respective costs. Whether or not we agree with that, it's built into it. So if we don't raise the respective rates or keep them where they are, we have to figure out where we're going to actually pay for those respective services from.
Right.
So I can't say it's not going to, but depends on what we're expecting to do with the amount of funds that come in.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Allen.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Wayne Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question is for Malik, Director Hamid. Malik, the waste contract direct cost to us is $21,378,665 a year. Our collection fees is $25,740,659 and a little bit of change, which is $1.87 million difference in money. What are we doing with that monetary right there, as well as the ancillary charges that you plan on or what you propose in this body to add in? Can you kind of give me an idea?
I don't have in front of me today, but I believe I provided that information to you, Commissioner, previously, but I can provide again. You know, all the money is going back into the operation, and if anything left over, probably finance can answer that better than me, you know, where the money, if any left over, is going, but.
So what we charge in 2024 for the $310 or $320.50,
Yes,
there's actually gains to me that's made in that charge as well. So if we were paying, you know, what's the difference? What are we gaining from our direct charge to the contractors to what we are charging the citizens? How much of a profit is made at that moment? Do you have any idea?
So,
Because if we're talking about increasing to $3, $4, all the way up to $10, that's additional to what we already profit in for 2024. We adding more on to it.
yeah, so all those are factor in those numbers to, you know, to come up with that dollar amount. That's what the range is, you know, and the level of service, how you know, this body wanted to provide that level of service. So it's no different than, you know, franchise fee or tax and all other things, you know. So
I couldn't understand that last part, sir.
yeah, so the point I'm making is that the collection and the current rate, $320.50, and the recommended other is to cover the differential that's needed to provide the level of service which this body, you know, keep bringing up while, you know, this service is not being delivered at the level it should be.
What services are you speaking of?
So services, for example, vacant lot, demolition, litter pickup, keeping the city clean, illegal dumping, you know, anything related to the litter, you know, even vacant lot, really you can consider as a litter pickup under that category if you really wanted to look at deeper into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Mayor, I'd like the motion to approve the extension for 90 days for.
Second.
Madam Clerk, there's been a motion to approve the 90-day contract with a second. We have other colleagues in the queue that we're going to go through. All right, Chair recognizes Commissioner Sean Fran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These contracted rates for the 90 days, were they negotiated or they just tell us that they were needed to charge to make it meet?
So that's what they asked for it. Previously, they was asking on that, and really the reasoning behind is, you know, we are in 12 or 13 years of service, so everything is aging, and their operational costs going up, their labor costs going up, all of the things, and so they have to offset their costs to cover this 30 to 90 days, whatever this body, you know, because body has the ability to terminate before 90 days if they wanted to. So that's what it is, and that's what the new contract is needed to, for them to upgrade their fleet and, you know, and the wheel power and everything else. So that's what it's coming from, you know.
What the auxiliary services during this 90 days, if the commission was to suspend them, what kind of money would you save?
So this is just what the ask today with this is just is the pass through that will go directly to the hauler. It's not going to any dollar or any, you know, amount out of this is not going to any other services. It's directly.
So you're saying you're not doing any demo, vacant lot, street sweeper, or for the next 90 days? Is that what you is that what you're saying? None of that's going to happen?
No, I just said earlier, you know, we have 2025 budget. So we're gonna continue the service it till we run out of the money. Let me simplify it that way, you know.
So it would, I guess, it would take an action of this body to suspend the services to save the money, is what you're saying. If we're about to have a deficit because we're about to spend $1 million, why would we want to keep the gap that high and not suspend the services when all that's going on in our community, street sweeper shouldn't be used right now? Demo vacant, I mean, like, our community's destroyed.
So street sweeping is, $300,000 and $350 is vacant lot, still not gonna make up for $1 million. But it's up, it's this body, the governing body decision, I'm as a director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
will-
Thank you, Commissioner Fran. Commissioner Tony Lewis from the 6th. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. My question was in line with Commission from the 7th, Dr. Malik. When I look at this fee unit rate that is being proposed by both haulers, I see a discrepancy in the two. So my question was, is these fees commensurate to what our fees were before entering into this contract? Can you tell us what those unit rate fees were then? Because I see now that one of the haulers has a unit rate increase of $256, and the other one has a unit rate of $358. And that's a big discrepancy when it comes down to the rate. You're looking at $1 and some change with the two contractors. So are these new rates commensurate to our old rates, or are there some inflation factors factored into these new rates?
So, so there's no inflation factor. So, like this month, for zone and 2 and 3, the unit rate is $18.27. So adding this $358 will bring it to $21.86. For zone 1, for this month, the rate is $19.30. Added $2.56, we're gonna bring it exactly to the same amount, 28. So somehow they figure it out. I really don't know.
Okay, so
Yeah.
having heard that, what we would be paying both contractors, they would be getting the exact same amount in the 90-day contract.
Yes,
They
sir.
both would be getting.
Same unit.
Same unit,
Yes.
same unit rate.
Yes, sir.
Read no different. Thank you, Mayor Johnson.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Lewis. Chair recognizes Commissioner Bobby Williams from the 5th.
Mayor, let Mr. Johnson go, and then I'll go after him.
You got it. Commissioner Jordan Johnson, the commissioner from the 5th has yielded to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 questions. Do we need a 90-day agreement, or can we get a solid contract passed within the next 30 days? Because I guess my concern here is we're getting ready to create a deficit, and we don't need to. We don't have to. If we don't have to, why create a deficit? We just went through a budget cycle where we talked about saving money and the deficits that we're going to have to address, but we're getting ready to create one. I think Commissioner Franham hit it home. So if we don't have to create one, why? So number one, do we need 90 days? Can we have something accomplished within the next 30? And I guess that's a question for the body to really weigh on. Because again, we're getting ready to put ourselves into a position that we're going to be having to get ourselves out of pretty soon. So I'm just going to throw it out there. I don't know if we want to have that discussion before we vote, but if we can get it done in 30 days, then do a 30-day extension versus a 90-day extension. But why create a deficit?
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Williams, you ready to come back to the queue? Or?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Yes, sir.
The floor is
Yes, sir.
yours.
If we do an extension, all we're doing is just kicking the can down the road, and it's going to cost us more. If we kick the can down the road, February, March, or something like that, we'd have to come back to the same situation we're in right now. Director Malik brought some information to us He did the RFP, he did the research, he did the sitting down and talking with the companies, and he arrived at what he believes to be the best scenario for Augusta, Georgia. He brought forward a proposal that would include 2 waste haulers. He said that it includes a situation where we'll have street sweeping, we'll have money for vacant lots, we'll have money for other things to include in this particular contract that were not in the contract that we have now. In other words, he has done his due diligence. Therefore, and I really truly believe that a decision needs to be made before we go home for the year, due to the fact that if we don't, and we don't vote for this extension, we're going to have an interruption in service. I really do believe that we've got a situation where we have the information that we need in order to make a concrete decision, and therefore my motion is to adopt the original recommendation from Dr. Malik with the recommendation where he said we need to use the 2 waste haulers in Augusta, Georgia, due to the fact that, due to the area that it encompasses, that 1 would not be sufficient in order to do what needs to be done. So that is my motion to adopt the recommendation from Dr. Malik, his original recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner from the 5th. With your motion to adopt the recommendation from our director, seconded by Commissioner Jordan Johnson. I'm sorry, it's a substitute motion. Substitute motion by Commissioner Williams, seconded by Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Williams, I still see you in the queue. Are you good, or can I move?
I'm good unless you want me to say something. You want me to say something else?
No, I think I think we're clear. Commissioner Fradham from the 7th, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so y'all know, and I would hope that the commissioners are going to be here next year, like, there's a 30-day out on both of these, so you could technically get this done in 30 days and get out of it. So I would challenge y'all to get it done as quickly as possible, because it looks like it's going to cost us. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, we have a substitute motion that we need to address first. There's no one else in the queue. We're prepared to vote. There's been a request for a roll call vote as well. Madam Clerk?
One last time, don't you? Hear my voice.
All right. Mr. Fradham.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Guilfoyle. No, ma'am. Mr. Mayor.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Jordan Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. McKnight.
No, ma'am.
Ms. Pulliam.
Yes, ma'am.
Scott. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Williams. Yes, ma'am. That motion fails 5-4.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's go with the original motion by Commissioner Wayne Guilfoyle, please.
Mr. Fradham.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Guilfoyle. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Jordan Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh. Mr. Lewis.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. McKnight, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pulliam.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Scott.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Williams. Okay. That motion carries with Mr. Bobby Williams voting no.
Thank you, Madam. Madam Administrator, is there
Yes, sir.
anything you need to add?
Yes, sir. Just for clarification, there was a typo on the actual document. So instead of 358, it should be of 358 and of 256. It's just to bring to everyone's attention.
Okay, all right.
Point of clarity, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Johnson, floor is yours.
Just want clarity on where are we with the contract that's been presented. I know there was some questions about whether it needed to go back out for bid or whatever. Where are we with the current contract that's been presented, the contract that was presented by Dr. Malik?
So Commissioner Johnson, actually, the actual RFP is still active. So this governing body has not canceled that process. So I guess a decision has to be determined as it relates to how you want to proceed with that RFP and the recommendation that was made by Dr. Malik.
Okay. And would that be on the agenda for the first commission or first committee of the new year? Is that coming back before the commission?
We can bring that back to the governing body, yes, sir.
Put that on that agenda. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, there's been a request to add that to the agenda. January 7th,
Full commission, yes.
full commission, January 7th.
That was the agenda item on the December 3rd meeting?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Clarification, thank you. Commissioner Scott, you were in the queue, you good? All right, Madam Clerk, does that conclude our business for today?
Yes, sir.
If so, this meeting's hereby adjourned. Thank you guys for being here. Let's go downstairs and celebrate some folks. And